tense moments in Situation Room as Biden oversaw a raid on ISIS leader that was months in the making. CNN. President Joe Biden watched in real time Wednesday as U.S. commanders landed in Syria to raid a three-story home surrounded by olive trees where the top leader of ISIS was living with his wife and members of his family. From the head of the Situation Room table, Biden watched anxiously as an American helicopter suffered many mechanical problems on the ground. There was a relief in the room when children emerged from the first floor of the building, running to safety. Moments later, an explosion rocked the site, a suicide detonation that killed Abu Ibrahim al-Hashimi al-Qurasi, his wife and his children, blowing their bodies outside the building and onto the surrounding land. The details of how Biden monitored the raid came from the senior administration officers who recounted in detail on Thursday morning. Their description was of the successful operation that took out a critical terror leader while avoiding any American casualties. The U.S. officials insisted the only civilian casualties were those caused by the leader himself when he blew apart his residence with his family inside. It was the highest profile counter-terror operation of Biden's tenure, and the officers appeared intent on using it to cast the president in the decisive light. In some ways, it mirrored the race ordered by Biden's two predecessors to take out terror leaders in their homes, each of which was monitored in real time on a secure feed. Like after those missions, the White House was capitalized on the moment. They quickly released a photograph of the jacket-lead president in the Situation Room staring intently ahead as the raid unfolded. Biden emerged mid-morning to deliver a brief statement about the mission from the White House Roosevelt Room. This operation is the testament to America's reach and capability to take out terrorist threat, no matter where they try to hide anywhere in the world, he said, issuing a message to terrorists who are still at large. We will come after you and find you. He added that every precaution had been made to protect the civilians, saying, "We do know that as our troops approaches to capture the terrorists, in a final act of desperate cowardice with no regard to the life of his own family or those of others in the building, he chose to blow himself up rather than face justice for the crimes he has committed." When Biden was vice president, he had opposed the risky mission to take out Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden at his compound in Pakistan, an ultimately successful operation that was designed to limit civilian casualties. Biden's mission mirrored that operation in some ways, and he similarly decided upon using American Special Forces to take out the ISIS leader instead of ordering an airstrike on the home, a sign his views of the risk had shifted in the more than 10 years since bin Laden's death. Knowing that this terrorist had chosen to surround himself with families, including children, we made a choice to pursue a special forces raid at a much greater risk to our own people rather than targeting him with the airstrike. We made this choice to minimize the civilian casualties, Biden said on Thursday morning. U.S. descriptions of the raid were derived from accounts on the ground and the real-time feed. In the past, only U.S. accounting has later turned out to be incomplete or wrong. Sources on the ground reported at least 13 fatalities during the raid, including 6 children and 4 women, according to Syrian civil defense group, the White Helmet. The President Biden, Vice President Harris, and members of the President's National Security Team observed the counterterrorism operation responsible for removing from the battlefield ISIS leader Abu Abraham al-Hashimi al-Qurashi. Tremendous tension in Washington. Officials described on the operation month in the making meant to incapacitate a shadowy leader of the terror group that has feared was regrouping. We think the impact of the killing of Qurashi is going to be a blow to ISIS, a senior administration officer said, saying the terrorist was heavily involved in the running many of the operations. Officers said he oversaw ISIS branches abroad, including the one in Afghanistan responsible for the deaths of U.S. Marines last year and played a key role in the genocide of the Yazidi ethnic minority. At one point in December, top Pentagon officials brought a tabletop model of the location to the Situation Room to walk the president through their plans. The target, Qurashi, never left his compound. Living on the third floor with his family, he emerged one occasionally to bath on the roof. Families with no connection to ISIS lived on the first floor, apparently without knowledge of the terrorist 2 stories above them. It was months ago. The U.S. learned the leader of ISIS was living there, running his terror operation through a network of couriers. When Biden was briefed by operational commanders in December, he orders the Pentagon to take precautions to minimize the civilian death, a difficult proportion for the target, who appears to intentionally surround himself with children and families as protection. U.S. forces who carried out the mission rehearsed the operation, including the safeguards to protect the innocent. When the American team landed, they announced their presence loudly, asking those inside the building to leave and for others in the surrounding residential area to stay away. Biden gave final approval of the operation on Tuesday in the Oval Office, where he was briefed by the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. There was a tremendous tension in the Station Room a day later as the President, Vice President Kamala Harris, and members of Biden's military and national security teams monitored the situation in real time. Months in the making, Biden had been very steeped in the operational details after months of planning, a senior administration official said, which included the model of the building housing the top ISIS leader brought many military leaders into the Situation Room in December. He engaged in the constant give and take with his military commanders. By early December, U.S. intelligence officials were certain Qurashi was living in the residence. Planning was incredibly complex, the official said. Qurashi was living in the residential neighborhood on the third floor of the building housing families, including children. Qurashi himself rarely left the building, and his human shield, the official said, save for occasional baths on the roof. U.S. officials, of course, considered the prospect that he might detonate himself during the operation, in the same way ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi did during the raid that killed him in 2019. That is precisely what happened. Inside the situation room, Biden received the report of the significant explosion was officers said ultimately killed Kurashi and his family. That happened fairly early in the after operation, the officer explained. From there, things ran in a linear fashion, and all deaths and casualties were a result of actions of members of ISIS, the White House alleged. The blast occurred before any U.S. forces entered the building, destroying the third floor and sending bodies into a surrounding area. Military engineers had determined ahead of time a blast would not cause the building to collapse. I doubt he knew that when he set off that detonation, the officer said. It was probably his intent to kill everyone in that building. Still, the operation was not complete. A top ISIS lieutenant, lieutenant was on the floor beneath Karachi, facilitating day-to-day operations of the terrorist organization. When U.S. forces entered the building, he barricaded himself in his quarters with his wife on the second floor and engaged the American forces. The ISIS lieutenant was killed. After his death, a number of children emerged from the second floor. They were removed to safety. A U.S. helicopter had mechanical issues during the raid and was properly disposed of at some distance from the site, the official said. Those issues had nothing to do with any kinds of hostile action. Ultimately, that helicopter was able to extract itself from the immediate target area and under control, able to land in another location where the decision was made to disable it and destroy it, the officer said. Tension in the situation room turned to relief when the first report came in from the raid. A family on the first floor, including a man and a woman and several children, was officers believed were unaware of the ISIS members living around them, were led to safety away from the building. When the operation had concluded, Biden offered only a few words. The president was obviously pleased with the report from his commanders, officers said. Biden had tremendous praise for our team. The officer said that as he left the situation room, Biden said, God bless our troops.